The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth, and now the galaxy would feel the consequences. Adam, Ilara, and the people of Earth stood on the edge of a new era, one where humanity would no longer be considered weak, innocent, or unworthy. The Talon Corps' failure to control Earth only strengthened humanity's resolve to defend their home, their way of life. And as the invasion continued, it became clear that Earth was no longer the same planet it had been before. Across the globe, cities that had once been filled with fear and uncertainty now echoed with hope. Humanity's powers, once thought to be a mere fluke, were becoming more and more refined. Adam had unlocked the key to humanity's evolution, and with every passing day people discovered new abilities within themselves. From telepathy to elemental manipulation, the changes were growing faster than anyone had imagined. Humanity had awakened, and now they were a force to be reckoned with. Ilara sat in the war room with Adam, watching the holographic map of the battlefield. The Talon Corps had taken heavy losses, but the Galactic Council's fleet was still en route. They were coming for Earth with full force, but Ilara wasn't worried. Not anymore. "We've made our stand," Ilara said, looking at Adam. "We've shown them what we can do, but now we need to think about the bigger picture. If the Council's fleet arrives, things will only escalate. We need to end this once and for all." Adam nodded, his face serious. "The galaxy needs to understand that we're not just defending Earth. We're defending our right to exist as we are. The Talon Corps may be one thing, but the Council's fleet is a different animal. We need to strike first. We need to show them that we're ready for whatever comes next." A silence hung in the room as everyone processed Adam's words. The human race had already proven itself capable of incredible feats, but this was the tipping point. The Talon Corps had been a test, but the Council's fleet was something else entirely. Earth's defense couldn't rely on just individual powers anymore. They had to unite in a way that no one had ever seen before. Far in the depths of space, the Galactic Council's massive fleet continued its approach to Earth. The ships, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, were a spectacle of power and technology. The Council's warriors were the elite of the galaxy, some of the deadliest beings to ever exist. They had been sent to Earth not only to quell the rebellion, but to ensure that humanity could never challenge the established order again. Commander Rylak stood at the helm of the lead ship. His eyes narrowed as he observed the holographic displays in front of him. He could feel the tension in the air, and though his forces had already encountered resistance, there was something about Earth that unsettled him. He could sense the change, the unpredictability of humanity's newfound powers. "They've resisted us for too long," Rylak muttered to his second-in-command Vrax. "We'll wipe them out. No one challenges the Galactic Council and lives to tell the tale." Vrax hesitated before speaking. "Commander, I've seen the footage. They're not like anything we've fought before. They adapt. They think faster than we do. We can't just treat this as another simple invasion." Rylak shot him a cold glance. "Do not question me, Vrax. They are nothing more than a primitive species with a few lucky abilities. We've faced worse. We will crush them." But deep down, even Rylak couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest. The galaxy had never seen a species evolve like this. Humanity had tapped into something ancient, something the Council couldn't understand. And the longer they waited, the more it became clear that Earth was ready for them. The humans were no longer the same weak creatures they had once been. Back on Earth, Adam and Ilara were preparing for the next phase of their strategy. The battle was far from over, but Earth's forces had gained the upper hand. The resistance, made up of people with abilities far beyond ordinary humans, had been organizing under Adam's leadership. They were ready for the next step. "We can't wait for the fleet to land," Adam said. "We need to make a move before they get here. We're going to show the galaxy that Earth doesn't bow down." Ilara agreed. The longer they waited, the more the galaxy's fear of Earth would grow. It wasn't just about winning this battle. It was about reshaping the future of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer content to sit back and let others dictate their fate. They would fight, but they would also make sure that Earth's future would be determined by Earth itself. The decision was made. The human resistance would take the fight directly to the heart of the Council's fleet. The time had come to strike first. They had to make sure the galaxy knew that Earth wasn't a planet to be ignored or underestimated anymore. The final battle took place in the space above Earth as the Council's fleet began to descend. The humans, with their newfound powers, fought back with everything they had. But this time, it wasn't just individual powers. Humanity's unity had turned them into a force stronger than anyone could have anticipated. Adam, now fully in control of his abilities, stood at the forefront of the battle, leading the charge. The fight was intense. The Talon Corps soldiers, once considered invincible, found themselves overwhelmed by the creativity and resourcefulness of Earth's resistance. Humans who had once been ordinary civilians now wielded power that defied the laws of nature. Some could generate force fields, others could manipulate time, and some had learned to harness the very energy of the stars themselves. It was chaos, but it was also a testament to humanity's strength. Each person fought not only for their own survival, but for the survival of their species. They fought for the freedom to exist as they were, without fear of being crushed by a superior power. And in the midst of it all, Adam and Ilara led the charge, their minds working together in perfect harmony. As the battle raged on, the Council's fleet began to retreat. Earth had shown them something they hadn't expected: unity, creativity, and adaptability. Humanity had proven that they were no longer the weak species the galaxy had once dismissed. They had awakened, and now they stood as equals among the stars. Commander Rylak, watching the retreat unfold on his screen, clenched his fists in frustration. "This isn't over," he growled. "We will return. The galaxy will never forgive Earth for this." But even as he spoke, he knew that something had shifted. The humans had shown that they could not only defend themselves, but that they could evolve faster than any enemy could keep up with. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again, and the Council would have to rethink its entire approach to dealing with humanity. In the aftermath of the battle, the people of Earth gathered in peace. The skies above, once darkened by the shadows of invading ships, were now clear. Earth had won, but more than that, they had earned their place in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the innocent, powerless species it had once been. They had proven that they could stand up to the might of the galaxy's greatest powers. Adam stood at the front of a large gathering, surrounded by people from all walks of life. Their faces were filled with hope, pride, and determination. They had fought for their future, and they had won. "Today is the beginning of a new era," Adam said, his voice strong and confident. "We have shown the galaxy that we are not just survivors. We are a force, and from this day forward we will stand with the stars, not beneath them." The crowd erupted in cheers. Humanity had faced the greatest challenge in its history and had emerged victorious. And though the galaxy would never be the same, Earth had shown that it would no longer be ruled by fear. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never forget the day they learned to fear Earth. General Korath stood on the command deck of his flagship, a massive vessel known as the Nox Imperium, watching the holographic display of Earth's surface. The fleet's sensors were scanning the planet, searching for any signs of military power, but the readings were oddly peaceful. No sudden bursts of activity, no mass defense structures rising up to meet them. Nothing. His fleet had been sent here with one goal: to ensure that the humans understood their place in the galaxy. The Empire had never been challenged like this before. A species that could boldly send a message across the stars, claiming their territory and daring to issue threats? Unheard of. But as the fleet approached Earth, Korath couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was no indication that the humans were preparing to fight back. No fleet waiting in orbit, no massive planetary defense systems. Just an ordinary-looking world spinning peacefully in space. It made no sense. They had to be hiding something. Korath had fought against countless species in his long career, but the humans were different. The message they sent, it was too calculated, too confident. There was something beneath the surface that he wasn't seeing. "General Korath," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Commander Farron, the fleet's communications officer, her voice filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "We're receiving another transmission from Earth." "Another one?" Korath said, raising an eyebrow. "What now?" Farron quickly relayed the new message. It was brief, a single sentence. "This is humanity. We are not afraid." Korath's gaze hardened. "The arrogance," he muttered under his breath. "These humans have no idea who they are dealing with." But even as he spoke, something nagged at him. Why were they so confident? Why was there no fear in their message, despite the overwhelming force of the Empire bearing down on them? Something didn't add up. Earth prepares. Back on Earth, humanity was facing the greatest challenge it had ever known. The message from the Empire had sent shockwaves across the planet. Governments, military leaders, and ordinary civilians alike were all gripped with a sense of unease. Yet there was also a feeling of unity, a realization that Earth's survival depended on a collective effort. At first, Earth's leaders had been uncertain. How could such a primitive species as humans face an entire galactic empire? The truth was they had no idea what the empire was capable of. They had never encountered such advanced technology before. But when the message arrived, humanity's response was immediate. The world's military forces, long accustomed to fighting petty regional conflicts and occasional threats, now had to deal with something far greater, an existential threat that could obliterate their entire civilization. And yet, as they began to realize the scale of the Empire's power, something unexpected happened. Humanity united. The governments of Earth, long divided by borders, ideologies, and histories of conflict, came together. The United Nations, which had once been a forum for debate, became a center for action. Nations put aside their differences and pooled their resources to form a global defense alliance. The military leaders of every country were forced to cooperate, sharing knowledge, technology, and strategies. At first, it seemed like a hopeless situation. The Empire's fleet was incomprehensibly advanced, far beyond anything Earth's military could muster. But humanity had one thing the Empire did not: ingenuity. In underground bunkers, secret labs, and hidden facilities around the world, scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked together. They had never faced an enemy like the Empire, but they had something the Empire had overlooked: the human ability to adapt, to learn, and to innovate. And they used that to their advantage. Scientists analyzed every scrap of data they could get their hands on, everything. They had learned from the Empire's brief signal and any fragments of information they could gather. They began to reverse engineer what they knew of the Empire's technology. It wasn't much, but it was enough. They discovered that Earth's natural resources, its electromagnetic fields, the very fabric of its atmosphere, held unique properties that could be used to develop new weapons. These weren't the crude tools of destruction the Empire was used to seeing. These were subtle, precise, and deadly. For the first time, humanity realized that they didn't need to match the Empire's power with strength. They could use strategy, innovation, and surprise to level the playing field. The Empire moves in as. The Empire's fleet drew closer to Earth. They began preparing for a strike. General Korath was confident that this would be another simple mission, a quick, clean victory. Their fleet was vast, and the humans were nothing more than a speck in the grand scheme of the galaxy. They had no hope of defeating the Empire's might. "We are moments away from deploying our landing forces," Korath said, turning to his officers. "We will make an example of these humans. Send the message that no one dares challenge the Empire." His officers nodded in agreement. They had fought countless battles, and the idea that a species like the humans could stand against them was laughable. But even as they began their final preparations, Korath noticed something strange. The sensors on his ship were picking up subtle disturbances, unexplained energy fluctuations that seemed to come from Earth itself. It was nothing too large, just small anomalies that they couldn't quite explain. Yet, the more they examined the data, the more they realized something was wrong. These disturbances weren't random. Someone or something was deliberately creating them. "Prepare the fleet for possible interference," Korath ordered. "I want everyone on high alert." The unexpected resistance, the Empire's forces moved into Earth's orbit without resistance. There were no signs of an attack, no sudden military maneuvers, no fleets of warships awaiting them. Instead, they were met with a calm, almost eerie silence. General Korath's flagship hovered above Earth as the rest of the fleet prepared to deploy ground forces. It was all too easy. Earth's defenses were non-existent, or so they thought. Then, without warning, the first wave of humanity's counterattack came. It wasn't with conventional weapons. No mass bombings or missiles aimed at the fleet. Instead, the humans had set a trap, a hidden network of electromagnetic pulses and quantum interference that disrupted the Empire's ship's systems. The Nox Imperium was the first to feel the effects. Its shields flickered and then shut down completely, leaving the ship vulnerable for just a moment. The systems were scrambled and the ship's engines sputtered as the crew scrambled to regain control. "What's happening?" Korath demanded. "This can't be. Our systems are failing. This is impossible," muttered one of the technicians. "There's nothing in our database that matches this kind of interference. It's coming from the planet itself." The same thing was happening to the other ships in the fleet. The Empire's advanced technology was being attacked by the very planet they had come to conquer. It was as though the Earth itself was fighting back. Korath's mind raced. How could this be happening? The humans had no fleet, no army, they had nothing. And yet here they were, using their planet itself as a weapon. The initial attack was subtle, almost invisible, but it was enough to throw the entire fleet into disarray. "Get us back into orbit," Korath barked. "We need to regroup." The humans must have hidden defenses somewhere on the surface. But even as he spoke, the full scale of Earth's resistance began to unfold. Humanity's ingenuity wasn't just in their ability to survive. It was in their ability to think outside the box, to make the impossible possible. And the Empire had just learned that the humans were not as defenseless as they had assumed. The Empire's fleet was in chaos. What had seemed like an easy victory for General Korath and his forces was quickly spiraling out of control. The sudden interference from Earth's planet-wide electromagnetic pulses had disrupted the fleet's most advanced systems, leaving them vulnerable and disoriented. The Nox Imperium, once the pride of the Empire, was struggling to regain full functionality. It wasn't the sort of response Korath had expected from a species that had been completely unknown to the Empire until mere days ago. On the bridge of his flagship, Korath paced back and forth, his mind racing. How could this have happened? Earth had no known military forces capable of such an attack, no advanced technology, yet here they were, effectively stalling the Empire's superiority. Every moment of hesitation felt like an eternity, and Korath's frustration began to boil over. This shouldn't be happening. Korath bellowed. Their technology is primitive. They shouldn't be able to touch us like this. One of the officers, Lieutenant Jara, was hunched over a console, trying desperately to bring the ship's systems back online. "General, I can't explain it," she said, her voice shaking with disbelief. "The interference is unlike anything we've encountered. It's like they've tapped into our very own weaknesses." "I don't care about the why," Korath snapped. "I want results. We need to crush them before they get any more clever ideas." But as Korath stood there, rage building inside him, the reality of the situation began to settle in. The humans weren't simply fighting with weapons, they were fighting with something the Empire had never anticipated. Creativity, strategy, a deep understanding of the environment around them. And that made them far more dangerous than Korath had ever imagined. The hidden defenses of Earth back on Earth, the response to the Empire's attack was unfolding on a different level. The world's leaders, though initially gripped by fear and uncertainty, were now seeing a different picture. The idea of standing against the Empire had seemed impossible at first. But now humanity was seeing the beginnings of a miracle. Unity in the face of a seemingly invincible foe. Earth's defense efforts had been spearheaded by a group of the world's top scientists, engineers and military tacticians. The human race was doing what it had always done best, adapting. They didn't have the advanced weapons of the Empire. They didn't have the firepower. But they had something far more valuable, their intellect, the sheer will to survive, and the will to outsmart an enemy that had underestimated them. The first wave of electromagnetic pulses that had caused chaos among the Empire's fleet was only the beginning. Those pulses were only the first step of Earth's hidden defenses. The human ingenuity had taken them far beyond simple electromagnetic warfare. They had learned from the Empire's brief signal and studied its patterns. The scientists had designed a network of quantum encryption, which created an additional layer of confusion for the Empire's fleet, scrambling their communications and preventing them from making coordinated attacks. General Korath had underestimated the humans. He had assumed that their lack of advanced technology would make them easy prey. But now, the Empire was finding itself up against a species that could think outside the box, adapt quickly and fight in ways they couldn't predict. Human forces, though small in number compared to the vast fleet of the Empire, were using their own planet's unique resources to their advantage. Earth's atmospheric energy was harnessed in ways that allowed them to create sophisticated energy weapons. It wasn't just brute force they were bringing to the table, it was the environment itself, used as a weapon against the invaders. The Empire responds, on the bridge of the Nox Imperium. General Korath seethed with anger. His fleet had been thrown into disarray, and it was becoming more and more apparent that Earth's defenses were far more advanced than he had imagined. His officers and crew were working tirelessly to regain control of their systems, but every attempt seemed to lead to another failure. The humans had already proven themselves capable of surprising tactics, and Korath was no longer sure what to expect next. "We need to regain control," Korath muttered. "Send all available ships to attack the planet. I want to show them the consequences of defying the Empire." But his second-in-command, Commander Farron, spoke up. "General, the humans' interference is far more effective than we thought. The more ships we send, the more vulnerable we become. Their technology is unpredictable. We might be spreading ourselves too thin." Korath glared at her. "Are you suggesting we retreat, Farron?" Farron hesitated for a moment before responding. "No, General. I am suggesting we change our strategy. We need to learn from this and adapt. Otherwise, we risk losing everything." Korath stared out the window at Earth, frustration clouding his mind. The humans were not like any species he had encountered before. They weren't going to be intimidated by overwhelming force. They weren't afraid of the Empire's power. In fact, they seemed to thrive in the face of it. It was maddening. "Fine," Korath said after a long pause. "We'll change the approach. I want to strike their capital. They'll learn quickly enough that resistance is futile." A showdown begins as the Empire's fleet made its approach toward Earth's largest city. The humans were ready. They had known the attack was coming. There had been no doubt in anyone's mind. The leaders of Earth's Global Defense Alliance had gathered in their underground command center, a highly secure facility that had been designed to withstand attacks from any enemy. General Hudson, the leader of the Earth Coalition, addressed the room. "This is it. The Empire will be coming for our capital soon, but we know they won't stop there. If we let them take it, they'll take the rest of the world. We can't let that happen." His eyes swept over the room, meeting the gazes of scientists, strategists, and military officers. "We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. Today we show the Empire what humanity is capable of." The strategy was simple. They would force the Empire to waste its resources attacking the capital, while Earth's true defenses, hidden in the mountains underground and in remote regions, would continue to strike from unexpected locations. The Empire had the numbers, but humanity had the advantage of surprise and terrain. They would hit fast, strike hard, and then vanish, leaving the Empire unable to keep up. The first strike. The Empire's ships descended upon Earth's capital, confident that this would be the final victory. General Korath ordered the bombardment to begin, with the goal of crippling the planet's infrastructure and breaking the will of humanity. But the moment the first wave of attacks hit, the humans responded with something the Empire hadn't expected: coordinated lightning-fast counterattacks. Earth's newly developed defense systems fired from hidden installations. Satellites powered by Earth's unique magnetic fields launched energy beams at the incoming warships, destabilizing the Empire's shields and knocking several ships out of orbit. For a moment, the Empire's fleet was caught off guard. The Empire's soldiers, expecting to simply sweep through the city and crush the resistance, found themselves instead in the midst of an unexpected, fierce battle. Ships in orbit were forced to retreat, and the ground assault forces were immediately met with traps and guerrilla warfare tactics. General Korath's flagship was no exception. A direct hit from one of Earth's newly developed laser weapons knocked out its primary shields, forcing the ship to veer off course. Korath's face twisted with disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The humans weren't supposed to be able to do this. "This is impossible," Korath muttered, slamming his fist against the control panel. "How are they doing this?" General Korath stood on the bridge of the Nox Imperium, staring out at the chaotic scene unfolding before him. The battle for Earth had not gone as he had expected. The Empire's overwhelming fleet, which had once seemed so invincible, was now struggling against an enemy that should have been easy to defeat. Every attempt to crush humanity's defenses had been met with resistance far more sophisticated than they had anticipated. The Empire's flagship, the Nox Imperium, had taken a heavy hit during the first wave of attacks, its shields barely holding under the barrage from Earth's newly developed laser weapons. The human defenses were far more advanced than their initial readings had suggested, and every strike only seemed to provoke more clever counterattacks. "We are losing control," said Commander Farron. her voice shaking with frustration as she worked at her station. Our ships are being disabled one by one. The humans are attacking from every angle. We can't keep up. Korath clenched his fists, his jaw set in determination. He had never faced such an enemy, one that didn't just fight back but seemed to anticipate every move. The humans weren't relying on sheer numbers or brute force like the other civilizations the Empire had crushed. They were using their environment, their creativity, and most of all, their will to survive. And it was working. "Send the reserve fleet," Korath ordered, his voice cold. "We'll bombard Earth from space if necessary. We can't let this small planet defy the Empire." But deep down, Korath was beginning to wonder if the Empire's immense power was enough to defeat these humans. His confidence in their ability to crush all opposition was faltering. The humans had proven that they were not like any other species the Empire had conquered. They weren't afraid. The human strategy back on Earth, the leaders of humanity were seeing a similar shift in the battlefield. Though they were far outnumbered, they had managed to hold their ground. The humans were not just fighting a defensive war. They were showing the Empire that they could think strategically, adapt to the situation, and strike where it hurt most. General Hudson, who had been leading Earth's global defense efforts, stood in front of a large map of Earth and the positions of the Empire's fleet. His eyes were focused and determined, yet there was a hint of exhaustion in them. The battle had been grueling, and while Earth's defenses had made a strong showing, they could only hold for so long. "We can't keep this up forever," General Hudson said, his voice serious as he addressed the group of strategists and military leaders in the war room. "The Empire is too strong. We've already done more than anyone expected, but eventually they'll find a way to break through." One of the scientists, Dr. Maria Chang, spoke up. "We've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Empire's resources. They still have reinforcements waiting to arrive. We need to take the fight to them before they regroup." "What do you suggest, Dr. Chang?" asked Hudson. She paused for a moment before answering. "We've been using our planetary defenses well, but we need to think bigger. The Empire's strength is in its fleets, but it has weaknesses too. We need to disable their command ships, take out their communications, and sever their coordination. If we can cut off their ability to communicate, their ships will be forced to act independently and they'll start to break apart." Hudson nodded thoughtfully. "So you're suggesting that we go after their command center. But how do we get past their fleets?" Dr. Chang's eyes sparkled with determination. "We don't need to fight them head-on. We need to draw their attention away from their main force. If we create a series of diversions and strike at their weak points, we can weaken their resolve." It was a dangerous plan, but it was the best chance they had. Earth didn't have the firepower to defeat the Empire in a direct confrontation, but they could outsmart them. That was their edge. The Empire might have the numbers, but humanity had the brains and the drive to win at all costs. The battle for the Empire's pride. The Empire, meanwhile, was losing patience. Korath's plan to crush the humans through sheer force had not worked. The unexpected resistance from Earth's clever defenses was starting to unravel the Empire's pride. Every strike, every attack seemed to provoke more fierce resistance. It was as if the humans had anticipated every move. And the longer the fight continued, the more Korath realized that their strategy had been flawed from the start. His fleet was scattered, struggling to keep up with the humans' surprise tactics. The Empire's massive warships were powerful, but they were slow to adapt, and Earth's defenders had learned to exploit their weaknesses. The Empire's fleet had always been designed for domination, but it had never faced an enemy that could think and act as quickly as the humans. "We can't just keep pushing forward without a plan," Korath admitted, his voice filled with frustration. "We need to outsmart them. It's clear they're using their environment to their advantage. They're making the terrain their weapon. We need to figure out what they're doing and stop it before it's too late." Commander Farron nodded in agreement. "The humans have been anticipating our moves. It's as if they know what we're going to do before we do it. Their ability to adapt is unlike anything we've seen." "Then we need to strike at the heart of their defenses," Korath said firmly. "If we can take down their command centers, we can stop them from organizing further attacks. That will force them to surrender. We will not allow this planet to continue defying the Empire." The turning point back on Earth, the human resistance was preparing for their most dangerous move yet. They knew that the Empire's fleet was being stretched thin, but they also knew that the Empire would not back down easily. The battle for Earth had become a test of wills, and humanity was determined to show the Empire that they would not give up without a fight. The plan was simple. Earth's forces would stage a series of deceptive attacks to confuse and mislead the Empire, leading them to believe that humanity's main command center was in one location, when in fact it was in a completely different place. The goal was to distract the Empire and then launch a final, coordinated strike at their most vulnerable ships, those that were critical to the Empire's command structure. General Hudson, knowing the risk, gave the final order. "This is it. This is our chance. We're going to hit them hard and fast, and we're going to make sure they never forget the day they underestimated humanity." The first phase of the attack began. Small groups of soldiers and spacecraft launched rapid, unexpected assaults on the Empire's weakest ships. The Empire's fleets were pulled away from their main base of operations, and Korath's forces were left scattered and disoriented. The humans moved swiftly, taking advantage of every opening, every crack in the Empire's defense. But just when Korath thought he had them on the run, the true plan unfolded. Earth's main fleet, hidden in the shadows of the asteroid belt, emerged and attacked the heart of the Empire's command fleet. The Empire's most important vessels, the ones coordinating the battle, were hit with powerful electromagnetic pulses that disabled their shields and scrambled their systems. Chaos erupted within the Empire's fleet. The Empire's command structure had been disrupted, and suddenly the humans had the upper hand. Korath watched in disbelief as the Empire's once mighty forces began to fracture, unable to regroup or respond effectively. The humans had outsmarted them again. The beginning of the end. In the midst of the battle, Korath stood in his command center, watching as his once proud fleet began to fall apart. The humans were relentless, refusing to back down, and it was becoming clear that the Empire might not win this battle. For the first time in his career, General Korath was uncertain. The humans had shown him something he had never expected: resilience, strategy, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight with everything they had. It was a force that the Empire hadn't prepared for, and now the Empire was paying the price. "Withdraw," Korath ordered, his voice a mixture of anger and frustration. "We're retreating. We can't win this fight." But even as he gave the order, Korath knew that the battle for Earth wasn't over. The humans had made their point. They had shown the Empire that no matter how powerful they were, they could not just crush humanity with brute force. The humans would continue to resist, and in the end, that might be enough to change the course of the entire galaxy. The sound of alarms echoed through the Nox Imperium as General Korath watched in disbelief. His fleet was crumbling. The humans had done what no one had ever thought possible. They had forced the mighty Galactic Empire into a retreat. For the first time in his life, Korath wasn't sure what to do. His fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was in disarray. Ships that had once been invincible were now scattered, many disabled, others retreating toward the distant edges of space. The humans were not only winning, they were making the Empire look foolish. Korath, struggling to maintain his composure, turned to his second-in-command, Commander Farron. "What happened? How did this go so wrong? We were supposed to be unstoppable." Farron, her face pale and worn from the battle, could barely respond. They outsmarted us, General. They used our own tactics against us, setting up traps, using the terrain to their advantage. And their technology, we thought we could overwhelm them with sheer force, but their systems, their defense networks, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered. Korath's mind raced, but the truth was undeniable. The humans had taken the Empire's overwhelming power and turned it into a weapon against them. He clenched his fists in frustration. There had been no way to prepare for this. No way to anticipate the depth of humanity's resourcefulness. They're not just fighting to survive, Korath muttered to himself. They're fighting for something more. Earth's triumph on Earth. The mood was one of cautious optimism. After weeks of fierce resistance, the planet's leaders and military commanders stood on the brink of something remarkable. The Empire's retreat had come as a shock to many, but the humans had earned their victory, not through might but through determination, strategy, and ingenuity. General Hudson, who had led Earth's military forces since the beginning of the conflict, sat in a command center, his eyes fixed on the latest reports. Around him were the world's leaders, scientists, and military commanders, all watching the same data streams. The Empire's fleet was in retreat. The battle for Earth had not only been won, It had been a resounding statement to the entire galaxy. "We've done it," General Hudson said, his voice steady, though there was a faint hint of disbelief. "We've pushed them back. The Empire is withdrawing, but this isn't the end of our fight. It's just the beginning." Dr. Maria Chang, the scientist who had helped develop the tactics that had given humanity the upper hand, stood up, her eyes alight with determination. "We've shown the Empire that we're not afraid, that we won't be pushed around, but they won't give up so easily. They'll regroup, they'll send reinforcements. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Hudson nodded. "I agree. But for now, let's take this victory and make sure the Empire knows that Earth will not bow down to anyone. The rest of the galaxy needs to see this. Humanity isn't weak and we won't be intimidated." The Galactic Declaration. The most significant moment of the conflict had not come on the battlefield, but in the aftermath. With the Empire in retreat, the humans now had an opportunity to send a message not just to the Empire, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity had no interest in becoming part of some distant galactic hierarchy, nor did they want to live under the boot of an oppressive empire. General Hudson stood in front of a large audience of Earth's leaders, reporters, and diplomats. Behind him, a giant holographic display showed the vast expanse of space, the stars twinkling beyond. It was the backdrop to a moment that would change the future of the galaxy. Hudson took a deep breath. "This is our declaration to the galaxy," he said, his voice strong and resolute. "We are humanity. We are not like the other species you have encountered. We are not a race to be ignored nor to be subjugated. The Galactic Empire learned that the hard way. And now we are sending a message." He paused, allowing his words to settle in. The weight of the moment was not lost on him. "We have no desire to conquer or control anyone. We do not seek to dominate or rule the stars. What we seek is peace, but peace on our terms. We will defend our planet, our people, and our way of life from any force that seeks to impose its will upon us. And let this be known, if the Empire or anyone else ever dares to threaten us again, they will learn that humanity will fight back. We will not bow to anyone." The room was silent for a long moment as the power of his words sank in. This was not a call for war, but a warning, a statement of strength and resolve. "This is humanity's stand," Hudson continued. "We will defend our home and we will defend our right to live freely. The galaxy will know that we are not to be trifled with." The audience erupted into applause. But it wasn't just the leaders of Earth who were listening. The message was being broadcast across the galaxy, sent through every communication channel the humans could access. The message was clear. Humanity would not be dominated. The Empire's response back in the Empire's command center, the high-ranking officials were seething. The retreat had been humiliating, and the message from Earth only served to rub salt in the wound. The Empire's pride had been shattered. For centuries, no species had dared challenge their dominance, let alone defeat them in battle. But the humans had done it. Emperor Kale stood at the head of his council, his face a mask of cold fury. How could this happen? How could we be bested by such a primitive species? His voice was low, but there was a tremor of disbelief in it. General Korath, bruised from the defeat, stood to the side, listening quietly. The weight of the loss hung over him. The humans had not only repelled the Empire, they had exposed the Empire's arrogance and overconfidence. The defeat was more than just a loss of ships and soldiers. It was a blow to the very foundation of the Empire's authority. One of the advisors, a man named Vorix, spoke up. "It's not just the humans, Emperor. It's the message they've sent. The entire galaxy is watching. If we act again, it will not just be Earth we're fighting. It will be every species that dares to stand with them." Kale's eyes narrowed. "And yet we cannot allow this to stand. The galaxy must know that we are still the supreme force. We cannot let these humans get away with this defiance." "But we've already learned that brute force will not work," General Korath interjected. "We cannot underestimate them. If we attack again, we risk facing more than just Earth. We risk facing a united front of species who may now see humanity as a symbol of resistance." Kyle was silent for a moment, then turned away, pacing the room. "We will not forget this, but for now we must rebuild, prepare for the next phase." A new era back on Earth, humanity was not resting on its laurels. Though the Empire had been pushed back, the message had been sent, and the galaxy now knew that Earth would not be a target for domination. But this was just the beginning. Humanity's victory over the Empire had not been just about defending their planet. It had been about something much larger, the right to choose their own future. General Hudson and the leaders of Earth knew that there would be challenges ahead. The Empire would regroup. Other powers in the galaxy might see humanity as a threat. But Earth had proven something powerful. They had proven that with unity, creativity, and determination, they could overcome even the most formidable enemies. Humanity had not only stood against the Empire, they had declared their place in the universe. "We have shown the galaxy who we are," Hudson said in his final address. "And now we will continue to build. We will continue to grow. The galaxy may be vast, but humanity will no longer be a forgotten species. We will not be dominated. We will stand as equals." The galaxy would never forget what happened here. Humanity had made its mark, and the Empire had learned to its horror that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated.